I just spent an hour reading a chapter for my history class. I was focused, no phone, no distractions, and now I couldn't tell you what it was about. I remember the title and a picture of a ship. That's it. It's like the words just passed through my brain without stopping. Why can't I remember what I read?
Maybe the goal isn't to remember what you read.
What? But that's the whole point of studying, to remember information for the exam.
That's what most students believe, that reading is like putting files into a computer. You open the book, run your eyes over the words, and the information should just save.
Exactly. And my computer seems to be broken.
The problem isn't your memory, Mark. The problem is the process. We think reading is a passive activity, like watching a movie. But true reading, the kind that leads to understanding, is an active conversation.
A conversation? With a book?
With the author's mind. And right now, you're walking into that conversation without knowing the topic, and you're leaving before it's finished.
Okay, so when I start a new chapter, I just open the book and started the first word. That's what reading is.
It's a common starting point. It feels productive to just jump in. But it's like trying to build a house by starting with one random brick. You have no plan. You don't know what you're building.
So I'm just collecting bricks with no purpose.
Exactly. Most students do this. They read sentence by sentence, hoping that understanding will just happen at the end. But it rarely does. The mind needs a framework. It needs a question to answer.
But I don't have any questions yet. I haven't even read it.
You can find the main question before you read the first paragraph. A well-written chapter is trying to answer one big question. Your first job is not to read, but to find that question. Look at the title, the headings, the introduction, and the conclusion. Spend just 3 minutes looking at the structure.
So like scanning it first? My teachers say that's not proper reading.
It's not about reading faster. It's about understanding the map before you start your journey. You look at the destination, the conclusion, and the main roads, the headings. From this, you make a guess, an intelligent guess. What is the single most important question this author is trying to answer for me?
So I have to become a detective before I even start.
A curious detective. When you have a question in your mind, the words on the page are no longer just words. They become potential clues. You're not just passively receiving information. You're actively searching for an answer. You begin to anticipate the author's argument.
So before I start page 1, I should already have a question. Like, for my history chapter, maybe the question is, why did this trade agreement fail? Instead of just reading a chapter called The 1850 Trade Agreement.
Precisely. And now your brain is not a passive sponge. It's a focused search engine.
Okay, I have my question. Now I start reading. But my other problem is, I highlight everything, or I feel like I should. Every sentence seems important.
Yes, what if that one small fact is the exam question? But when you highlight everything, you highlight nothing. The page becomes a sea of yellow, and you haven't learned to identify what truly matters. The real skill is not to see everything as important, but to see how some ideas support other bigger ideas.
Like the difference between the main point and the examples.
Exactly. If your big question is, why did this trade agreement fail? You are now reading with a purpose. You are looking for reasons. The author might give 3 main reasons. Your job is to find them. They are the big fish. The dates, names, and specific numbers are often the small fish. They are important, but only because they support the big fish.
So I should ignore the details?
Not ignore them, but see them in relation to the main idea. Your primary task is to distinguish between the core argument and the evidence that supports it.
How do I do that? Sometimes it's all mixed together.
Authors leave clues. Words like first, second, therefore, as a result, most importantly. These are signal words. They tell you that a key point is coming. When you see one, you should pay attention. This is likely one of the big fish. You're no longer just reading words. You're identifying the structure of the author's thinking.
This is making sense. So I preview to find the question, then I read to find the main answers, distinguishing them from the details. Then I finish the last page, and I'm done.
And this is the third and most critical mistake. Closing the book is not the final step. It's the beginning of the most important part of the process.
But I've finished reading. My work is done.
The information is still in the author's words. It's still borrowed knowledge. It doesn't belong to you yet. You understand it in the context of the book, but you haven't integrated it into your own mind. This is why it disappears an hour later.
So what am I supposed to do? Reread it immediately?
The opposite. You close the book, you look away, and you ask yourself, can I explain the author's main argument with its key supporting points out loud in my own simple words?
To who? Just to myself?
To yourself, to an empty chair. The person doesn't matter. The act of speaking it out loud is what matters. It forces your brain to move from passive recognition, yes, I saw those words, to active recall and synthesis. If you can't articulate it simply, you haven't understood it deeply enough.
That sounds difficult and a little strange, talking to myself in my room.
It's the single most powerful way to check your understanding. If you stumble, if you say, and wait, what was the second reason again? That is a gift. That confusion tells you exactly where your understanding is weak. You can then open the book for 30 seconds, find that specific point, and try again. It's not about memorizing. It's about making the idea your own.
Okay, this all sounds logical. Preview to find the question, then read for big ideas, and then explain it to myself. But it also sounds like a lot more work than just reading. My exams are next month. I have hundreds of pages to get through. How can I do this 3-step process for every single chapter? It feels so slow.
It feels slower for one chapter, but it's much, much faster for one semester.
How? That doesn't make sense.
Think about your current method. You spend an hour reading, you remember almost nothing. So tomorrow or next week, you have to reread it. That's another hour. Then before the exam, you have to reread it again, trying to force it into your memory. You might spend 3 or 4 hours on one chapter and still feel anxious.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
This method takes maybe an hour and 15 minutes. But when you are done, you are truly done. The understanding is locked in. The fundamental ideas are there. You won't need to reread the whole chapter again. You can just review your own simple summary. It seems slower at first, but it saves you from hours of rereading and panic later on. It's the difference between building a strong foundation once and repairing a weak wall over and over again.
And what if I get the main question wrong at the start? What if I anticipate the wrong thing?
That's fine. It might even be better. If you start with a question and find that the author is actually answering a different, more interesting one, your brain will notice the surprise, and surprise is a powerful tool for memory. You haven't failed. You've just refined your understanding of the conversation.
Let's put it all together. It's not 3 separate steps. It's one seamless process of having a conversation. The preview stage is like asking your friend, so what are we going to talk about today? You're setting the topic. Okay, that makes sense.
The active reading phase is the main part of the conversation. You're listening carefully, but you're not just accepting everything. You're trying to distinguish the main points from the stories and examples. You're listening for the fundamental message.
So I'm asking, what's your real point here?
Exactly. And the final step, explaining it back to yourself, is like saying at the end of the conversation, okay, let me see if I understand you. Are you saying that?
This confirmation step is where you truly incorporate the knowledge.
It transforms you from a passive audience member into an active participant in the discussion.
So I need to anticipate the topic, distinguish the key points while I'm listening, and then articulate the main idea back to make sure I understand it.
And you've just described every good conversation you've ever had. You can do the same thing with a book.
So all this time I thought the problem was my brain, my memory. I thought I just wasn't smart enough to remember everything.
And you were trying to solve it by forcing yourself to concentrate harder on a broken process.
I was trying to be a better sponge, a better recording device.
When you really needed to be a better detective, a better conversationalist. The goal isn't to absorb every word. The goal is to find and understand the core message, to find that one fundamental idea the author worked so hard to explain.
I think I see it now. Reading isn't about what I can get from the book. It's about the quality of the questions I can bring to the book. I was waiting for the book to teach me, but I'm supposed to be questioning the book.
And when you start doing that, you'll find you don't just remember more. You actually start thinking.
It's a completely different way to look at a textbook. It's not an enemy to be conquered anymore. It's a mind I can have a conversation with. And I finally know the rules of the conversation. I feel like I can actually do this now.
Hello, and welcome to Modern Skills in English. We're glad you could join us for this discussion.
We hope this conversation was useful for you. If there is a specific challenge or topic you face as a student that you'd like us to explore in a future episode, please let us know in the comments below. We read all of them.